A major announcement in defence today could not have come at a more critical time for our Defence Force. The Prime Minister revealed that Vice Admiral David Johnston will take over as Chief of the Defence Force on July the 1st, the first Navy leader to head the ADF in more than 20 years.
He has been in the engine room of all the work that we have done over the last 2 years. And this is a moment where we need a safe pair of hands and deep experience to take our Defence Force forward. And there is no person who meets those qualities better than David Johnston.
Given the historical and strategic importance of the AUKUS deal, and especially the nuclear submarines, it's perhaps natural that the Navy takes the lead.
I am very conscious of the responsibility that comes with the role, the strategic environment in which we face ourselves, and most particularly the responsibility I have to the extraordinary men and women in the Australian Defence Force and the families who support them.
There are suggestions now that both Japan and Canada could join at least some of the AUKUS strategic arrangements. This amounts to the Anglosphere and its key democratic ally in Japan uniting in a show of strength in the Pacific against a militaristic and recalcitrant Chinese communist superpower. We must not underestimate the military build-up in China. It's got about 500 nuclear warheads now, more than 3,000 military aircraft. It's expanding its missile capability and modernising its army equipment. It now has the world's largest navy with 370 vessels, 3 aircraft carrier groups, more than 50 submarines. The defence build-up is extraordinary and unprecedented, and it includes the co-opting and fortification in breach of international law of strategic islands in the South China Sea. So our tardiness in Australia in equipping ourselves and the delays and missteps in our submarine procurement and the delays we now face upgrading to nuclear, it all leaves us vulnerable at a time of great strategic uncertainty. So the job for the new CDF is immense when it comes to implementing strategy and turning the AUKUS ambition into a practical reality as soon as possible. But that's just part of the challenge. The culture in defence is in crisis, morale is poor, and the forces all have trouble recruiting and keeping the personnel they need, let alone the extra they'll require in the future. And a lot of this must be placed, a lot of responsibility for this must be placed on the shoulders of the man who hands over to Admiral Johnston. The current CDF, General Angus Campbell, has been a shocker. Remember, he's the man who nearly 4 years ago revealed the findings from an inquiry into our soldiers in Afghanistan.
His report details credible information regarding deeply disturbing allegations of unlawful killings by some.
No proper investigation, no charges laid at that time, no convictions till this day. But the ADF was just thrown under the bus.
To the people of Afghanistan, on behalf of the Australian Defence Force, I sincerely and unreservedly apologise for any wrongdoing by Australian soldiers.
41 Australian soldiers died trying to protect the people of Afghanistan from the Taliban, who happen to be the same extremists who are now in charge in that country after the world gave up. And we had our Defence Force chief apologise to Afghanistan when there was no proof that any soldier committed a war crime before our soldiers had the chance to defend themselves in any court case. This is deeply troubling. Only one soldier has since been charged and the trial hasn't been concluded. The CDF also tried to remove medals from 3,000 soldiers who'd served in Afghanistan. He was overruled when Peter Dutton was Defence Minister, but he's tried again under Labor, seeking to punish and shame all these soldiers for the alleged unproven crimes of a few. No wonder Defence is having trouble recruiting people. The CDF is supposed to lead his troops, not undercut them. But it gets worse. The Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide is drawing to a conclusion, and it's uncovered alarming rates of suicide among our service personnel and veterans. It's established that Defence has been aware of this for years and that Defence contributed to the problem and that it hasn't done enough to help its people. In fact, it's harmed them. General Campbell even apologised for these failures. But have a listen here as he's given a chance to explain why defence organisations that can do so much can fail so badly at this crucial task of caring for their own people.
General, you command an organisation that takes on endeavours of an extraordinary scale and is able to execute them with precision and effectiveness. Why could that not be done before now with respect to the issue of suicide and suicidality?
Part of it, Council, is that story of disaggregated federation moving to aggregated integration. Part of it is the underlying story of data visibility and connectability. Part of it is the compartmented nature of elements of our data and our approach to care. Part of it speaks to the requirements of things like the Privacy Act. And none of that I accept as satisfactory, and all of that is what we are working to move past.
Just gobbledygook, just excuses, just jargon, management theory and public service word salads, words with no meaning. This is what people say when they've got nothing to say. This is what they offer when they do not know what to do. It's a tragedy that we can get this at the very top of an outfit that's as crucial to this nation as our Defence Force. General Angus Campbell's big problem has been that he's not a leader in a military sense. He's sought to be a leader in the woke world of Canberra-based box ticking. I wouldn't normally bring in family, but in this case it's relevant if you want to understand how General Campbell could be more woke than warrior. His household has to be one of the wokest in the capital, with his wife serving as Australia's ambassador for gender equity.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Copus Campbell, Australia's new Ambassador for Gender Equality. I'm incredibly honoured to take on this role as the lead international advocate for Australia's commitment to gender equality and the human rights of women and girls and persons of diverse gender identities.
Yeah, this woke stuff is everywhere. As you all know, it's in our schools, it's rampant in our universities and our public broadcasters. I heard the ABC this morning asking people to ring in if they identify as a woman. The woke stuff is all over the public sector and Canberra, and obviously in the Campbell household, and through Campbell, the General Campbell, him and others in the Defence Forces, they've infected our Army, our Navy, our Air Force with this stuff.
October of 20, we had instituted, for the first time in more than a century, a single expression of the values and behaviours expected of every single individual across the organisation. That took 22 months of work.
Really? All that time? All that work? For what? Gobbledygook. This is the big challenge now for Admiral Johnston. He's been Vice Chief of Defence for 6 years now. So how's he going to demonstrate a different approach?
China, what sort of challenge or threat does it pose to Australia? And secondly, do you support stripping medals and decorations from soldiers involved in the war crimes investigation?
I think the government's view on our international security will become clear when the National Defence Strategy announcements are made, so I will leave that for that opportunity, and I'll also leave the second question. Thanks.
Nothing to say, not a great start. He needs to signal a break from past distractions and preoccupations. The new CDF needs to be a champion for his charges. He needs to be clear and concise. He needs to speak directly and to act. Get the nuclear submarines sorted, sure. Get on with active recruiting. Stand up to China. Work closely with our allies, big and small. But get rid of the word salads and the box ticking in the Defence Forces. Every workshop you run on gender equity or cultural understanding is another moment our enemies steal the march on us. It's another moment distracting our service personnel from their core tasks. Focus them on action and results, on delivering what they must deliver, and that is the fighting capability to keep this nation safe.